Imagine a young, innocent 18-year-old girl from Russia taking her first steps into a great country she's heard so much about, America. She is here for a modeling job she found online that promised to pay her lots of money and to pay for all her expenses while she's out here. She's nervous because she's never been away from home, but they tell her everything's going to be okay and that her family will be taken care of. She gets into the car and they start driving. Everything seems normal, and the landscape and the buildings mesmerize her. They pull up to the house she's staying at, and before they let her out, they ask her for all her documentation. She hesitates for a second, but they assure her that everything will be okay. So she gives it to them. She's then pulled out the car, taken into this house, stripped of all her belongings, injected with drugs, and now she's a victim of human trafficking. Today, I will be speaking about human trafficking in the United States and ways we can help someone who is affected by it. I will be discussing human trafficking and how people are brought into it, the rehabilitation they go through, and the laws that are set in place, and what we can do to help this cause. So what is human trafficking? The United Nations Office of Drug and Crime define it as the threat or use of force, of other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of abuse, of power, of position, of vulnerability, or giving, receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Medical doctor Wendy Macis stated cases of human trafficking were found in all 50 states. According to National Human Trafficking Resource Center, 1,012 people have reported cases of human trafficking in California, and 3,130 people have called in to find help and to look for somewhere to stay because they've escaped from their human traffickers. There are 3 forms of human trafficking according to the Human Rights Commission of San Francisco that is prominent in the United States. These 3 are sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Women make up about 80% of the people trafficked among the states, most being from another country, while the rest are made up of children ranging from 7 to 17 years of age. An article by Elia Kohli at the University of Tehran says that these victims are confined to these traffickers by taking away things like their money, passport, identification, and self-worth. These victims that come from different countries are threatened from not escaping because they are told their whole family will be killed, or they would release provocative photos and videos of them. In an article written by Nancy Kubesque of the Texas Journal of Women, Genders, and Law, human trafficking is known to be on a global scale. The second largest enterprise is in the United States. And the United States is known to be a major destination for this enterprise. We always hear about these things happening around the world, though we never think it could be in our own backyard. Now that we learn a little bit about human trafficking, let's talk about the ways the United States tries to protect these victims after they come out of these horrendous things. In 1999, there was a proposal to bring awareness to the crimes of human trafficking being committed in the United States. According to Congress, about 50,000 women and children are being trafficked throughout the United States. And in 1999, these statistics were scary. And so Congress passed a law called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, TVPA. The TVPA allowed for traffickers to be prosecuted and convicted for crimes of human trafficking instead of prosecutors having to be creative and try to charge these criminals with something else. For example, instead of a prosecutor charging them with harassment and drug use, they would charge them for the crime of actually human trafficking. Even with the TVPA, between 2001 and 2007, the number of people trafficked into the United States began to increase from 244,000 to 800,000 people. They began to realize that identifying victims and traffickers were a lot more difficult than it seemed. And it made law enforcement's jobs harder because they didn't know who was a trafficker and who was a victim. Throughout the years, several more revised TVPAs were put out, one in 2003, 2005, 2008, and the current one in 2013. These revisions will not only protect victims of human trafficking and prosecute traffickers harder, but also allows for rehabilitation and help throughout this whole process of recovery. Now that we've talked about what America has done for our victims, let's talk about what we can do for our victims of human trafficking so we can stop this madness. Does anyone here know the signs of a person being trafficked? According to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center, people who are trafficked avoid eye contact, very anxious, very nervous people, lack knowledge about where they are or where they live, and show signs of physical and mental abuse are some of the things that you should notice in a person that's being humanly trafficked. One way you can help is report to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center and leave an anonymous tip. You never know whose life you might be saving. If you feel like you don't really know and you're unsure, just still leave a tip. You never know what it might be. Another way to help is to bring awareness to the problem. From the UNICEF End Trafficking Project to being involved in volunteer events by the National Human Trafficking Resource Center, there are so many ways you can help the cause. Imagine if you were in their place. Wouldn't you want someone to fight for you and get you out? Human trafficking affects hundreds of thousands of women and children each year in the United States. With legislation passed for our government to help, it is up to us to change and end the trafficking in our states. Today we have discussed human trafficking and how we can help people who are affected. Human trafficking is a real thing in America. With our help, we can help stop the growing epidemic in our country. Thank you.